Bro, they found cocaine in the White House. Literally.
Yeah.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
What else do you need, bro?
And
Hookers?
they never have a defense for it. But what about Trump? And I'm like, that's not a defense for this. Like,
Trump.
I literally saw, I work construction, right? So one of my buddies, like, he was wearing a Trump sweatshirt. It had Trump on the back, right? A hoodie. And I was like, what the heck? He goes, hey, D, listen, 8 years ago, I wasn't about that. But now, me, whole family, we love him. We like what he does.
Every time I see some crazy liberals that have transitioned their kids or something like that, they're almost always either white or black. No Mexicans, no Latinos, no Hispanics, no Asians. Why?
I want to know, is our government that evil to commit those crimes?
We live in an era where science is a religion. Ooh, I believe in science.
Yeah.
Do you remember people
yeah.
using 2 masks at a time?
Yes.
3 masks at a time?
Yeah.
On their own, driving a car?
Right.
This is a religion, bro.
I mean, we were stupid to believe that. I mean, for the last 4 years, people that believe that men can menstruate.
David Arebalo, right?
You said it right.
Was born and raised in Southeast Los Angeles. He is the host of Street Gospel Podcast, where he discusses the life of blue-collar Americans with his various guests. Mr. Arebalo is a husband, a father of 2, and a man of God. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you were born and raised here in Los Angeles,
Yes.
Southeast LA, right?
Yes.
Tell me about your childhood growing up in that area, how unsafe that was, how horrific or good or bad that was, because I have no idea. Everything that I know about LA, right? Everything that I see for 2 years,
right?
Or just from the movies,
right? So that's hard. I mean, yeah, right. Everything you've seen for the 2 years, LA was a lot different. You know, I grew up in my neighborhood. It was Cudahy, Bell, Southeast. That's where I grew up. 2 little cities nobody's ever heard of. Nothing great about those cities. Bell's been around for a long time. I went to Bell High School, graduated from there. But there's it was different. It was working class families. You know, there was fringes of gangs and stuff, but nothing. You never felt unsafe. Kids still played outside. We rode bikes. You know, we put on boxing gloves. We boxed. We played baseball on the street. It was a great time to grow up. Growing up in LA, 80s, maybe early 90s. Great time to grow up. I mean, it just was a different time. Kids were able to play outside. You felt safe. You know, you respected your friends' parents. If they told you something, you listened. You know, there was still some morals and some values, but those things changed. And
so your kids are grown up right now, right?
Yes.
How old are they? 20-something?
28 and 24.
So they grew up in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
They were playing outside on their own?
My son's 24, and he says his generation was the last generation of kids to play outside.
If you had a child right now and he'd be like, let's say, 5-year-old, would you let him play outside on his own?
No.
Why? That's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
How do you grow up? You grow up in the street.
Yeah.
That's how you get taught respect, dignity, everything. Discipline.
I think it's different. I walked to school when I was 6 years old. It was at least a mile and a half away. I had to cross.
There's no chance you're gonna let your kid.
Oh, no way. We laughed. They asked my parents, like my mom. You know, they asked her like, "How did you let David walk to school when he was 6 years old?" I mean, I'm talking. I'd walk from my block. You know, cut through a field of empty lot, walk down, cross a major street, Florence, and then to walk to school. 6 years old. And there was no cell phones. There was nobody letting my mom know I made it, right? And a lot of times I would walk home.
What about your kids? Did they walk to school?
They never walked to school a day in their life.
Why? That was 20 years ago. A little bit less. 15.
Spoiled.
That's the only reason? Not because it was unsafe?
I think there was one location where we lived at where we were it was probably about the same distance from that I walked when I was 6. I just didn't feel safe letting them walk. So my wife would give them a ride.
So what happened in the 80s to 90s? There were no pedophiles? No human trafficking?
Oh, I'm sure there was, for sure.
But how come? How come people let their own kids, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, girls and boys, just go to school and get back to school, get back from school to home? Now, no chance.
That's a great question. I mean, I'm sure I see kids walking to school by themselves still. I mean, so I think there's a couple variables here, right? I think kids have to walk to school by themselves. There's always been what we called latchkey kids that had to keep a key on their house key around their neck to get into the house because their mom had to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was different when I was younger because I think when I was younger, you didn't have two parents working. Mom was home.
Oh,
Usually.
even in the 80s.
Oh yeah, mom was home in the 80s and you were able to provide off one income. Now that's unheard of.
It's like a myth.
Yeah, so I feel bad for working families because it's like the mom has to go to work and it's tough because then sometimes maybe you start early and your kids don't go to school till 7:30, 8 o'clock. So, and then maybe the school's only a mile away. So as a parent, what do you decide to do? You maybe send them or have somebody else take them, So I think when we were younger, it was kind of like, well, you'd be walking to school and maybe you see your friend's mom walking, them to school, or you'd see the crossing guard that you knew, or, people along the block that, oh, I know them. If something were to happen, I'll yell. I think now everybody's a little bit more, there's no community in the neighborhood anymore. And I think you walk to school and you get 3 houses down, you don't even know your neighbor.
Why do you think that is? Because of the devices? We stick to the screens?
Yeah, I think the culture that we're in right now is I think people are isolated. I was thinking about this in my own neighborhood. Not too long ago. I know the guy across the street. If a package comes to my house, hey Al, can you get this package for me? If you're home, yeah. Hey, I'm going on vacation. Can you watch my house? Yeah, I got you, Al. Don't worry about it. There's a neighbor next to them. We help this woman out. Her husband has cancer. We'll go over there, pray for them, take something to eat or something. Neighbor to my left, met him one time. He's probably lived next to us 2 years, and we've only had maybe 1 or 2 conversations.
He stays inside or
stays inside. I don't really see him too much. The neighbors to the right of us are a little, to themselves. There's probably like 6 or 7 people that live in that house, and we hear them leave for work, but we never really had a conversation. I'm friendly if I'm out washing my car or watering my lawn. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And everybody's kind of just to themselves. And then we might have a few neighbors that pass by and, hey, how's it going? And we might talk a little bit, but I think it's just, I don't know why that is.
How old are you? You're 40, what?
50.
50.
Yeah.
So would you say you're a conservative?
For sure.
What about your kids? Your kids are more conservative than you are?
About the same. They probably say I was a little bit more than them, a little bit more hardcore, but they have conservative values, yes.
Do you know what? I feel like, let's take, for example, my generation, right? I'm 37 almost. So the older I get, the more conservative I become. But I believe that once I saw the world that is super liberal, I become more conservative and I teach my kids to be more conservative.
Sure.
So my kids' generation is going to be super conservative.
Yeah.
And I believe they are going to bring those values back.
Right.
Know your neighbor, help your neighbor, church, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I believe we're just one generation away from being Christian again, church, communities, friendship, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I've taught my kids well. I like to hear them when they tell us little stories about helping a neighbor out or helping a friend out or going out of their way for somebody. I'm very grateful for that. I mean, I was raised conservative. I don't think I always understood what that meant. It
was like by default, right?
Yeah.
You go to church, you believe in God.
Right.
You help your neighbor.
My parents came from a tough neighborhood. They weren't always the ideal citizens, but my dad was it was kind of a weird thing. He was very patriotic. He was kind of like, he knew God. He didn't serve God, but he was still from a gang. He was from a neighborhood, but he went to the army. In those days, you'd have nothing going on in your life.
You go to army?
You go to the army and try to get strained out a little bit. Didn't always work because they figured they had more freedom in the army. They're traveling around the world. They can party a little bit more. But he was very patriotic about that stuff. And so he raised us to be patriotic. And as young kids, then he became a Christian, changed his life. And then it was always, God, family, and country.
You see, once again, he saw the world and the life that can be brought by secular countries, secular communities.
Yeah.
What the world can look like without God.
Yeah.
Once he knew the difference, it's like knowing good and evil.
Right.
He knew what is evil, so that's why he switched.
Yeah.
The same thing for me. So I remember myself, we were having this long drive from Spain to Lithuania in 2022 with my wife. And I was like, what if, I had this idea, what if God shows us how the world can look like if we turn away from God? And my wife is like, what do you mean? And I was like, LGBTQIA propaganda to kids, trans, all that stuff, constant, endless wars and etc. So maybe this is the world we can live in if we turn away from God.
Right. I think as you get older, and I tell young people this that are so, maybe liberal or have these wild thoughts, I'm pretty patient with them because I'm like, hey, listen, when you have kids, when you have to provide for, the men, when you have to provide for a wife, when you start working, when you start paying taxes, and you see the world from a different viewpoint, you're going to be a little bit more conservative. And usually all of them say, no. And I say, okay,
let's wait.
And then when they have a few kids, they start paying taxes and their mindset changes a little bit. And they say, oh, yeah, I don't really like that. I always say there's a few things that we need, right? There's a few things that everybody wants. And it's funny because I always tell people this all the time that want to argue with me about being conservative or being a Republican or leaning to the right a little bit, right? I say, look, do you believe that you should be paying less taxes? Yeah. Do you believe that we should have less government in our life? They kind of get in the way sometimes. Yeah. Do you believe that we should feel safe? Not only like as a country, but, in your neighborhood.
Individually.
Yeah. Your kids could be able to walk to school. Do you feel like, you want to be safer in your neighborhood? Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's so simple, right? It's like, yeah, you're a conservative, bro. You just don't know it. And it's just like funny because it's like, it's not I think it's just like what's the right word here? I think it's like a negative connotation if you say you are. And in reality, yeah, that's what you believe. Like, I think people don't know what that means. And for us, like, especially like being, what we call chicano, I'm half Mexican, but I'm American, was born here and
Chicano
raised
is
here.
half Mexican, half American?
Well, it means that you're American, but of Mexican descent.
But
heritage.
it's a good word or a bad word?
It depends who you ask. If you
you.
ask a true Mexican, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, you're a sellout." Right? It's weird.
Really?
It's a weird thing, bro. You're brown on the outside, but inside you're white. That's what they kind of.
So, what's the N word for Mexicans? If you want to insult.
Man, if you got to insult, I don't want to be on tape saying it, bro.
Okay.
I mean,
but there's a word.
It's different for Mexicans because. And Chicanos, I don't think we get offended as fast when calling a word. I think the N word is like top level, right? I
feel like blacks do not get insulted by this.
Oh no, they don't get insulted by each other for sure. But I think if me or you called one of them that, it would be on. It would be on.
Maybe it depends on how we say it. Maybe it's like a joke.
Well, if you say it hard ER, then it's gonna be a problem.
Oh,
If you
really?
say A at the end instead of the ER, then it's totally different,
So
right?
many nuances.
And if it's in the context of maybe a rap song, maybe it won't be so bad. Or if half of your friends are black and that's where you grew up in, then hey, maybe that won't be a problem. I think for us, it depends who calls us it too. You know what I mean? That's the other thing. But I think we're kind of like, whatever, call us whatever. I'm gonna get offended. Like we kind of laugh it off. I think that's part of the culture. But I think, yeah, it's different. But a lot of people want to argue their values. And I think growing up, as a Mexican American, born here, raised here, you kind of realize like, yeah, that's who we are. Like the conservative values are Mexican values, even Mexican American values, right? For the most part, you see a family, they come here, they work hard, they start a business, they live here generations. What story is that saying? That's saying, hey, I believe in this country. It gave me an opportunity. I don't want the government in my way. Get out of my way. I can figure it out. I'll start a business. I'll be successful. And then the next generation will go on.
I believe people are having problems with the Republicans right now just like I had. Because when I lived in Lithuania, when I was, let's say, 15, 17 years old, right? Bush era. I was like, so in the Bush era, 9/11, Iraq, Afghanistan, all that, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, and I believe in many minds of Lithuanians, other Europeans, maybe even Americans, so Bush, it means Republicans. Republicans are for war, right?
Right.
Global police. They
Sure.
want a war with everybody. At the same time, prior to that, there was Clinton, right? Amazing era,
Yeah.
8 years, prosperity, everything.
Right.
So Democrats are for the people, for the poor, for the blue collars, and anti-war. Republicans are pro-war. Then comes Obama, mixes a little bit up, right? Syria, Arab Spring, all that stuff.
Right.
Then when did Trump arrive? It's like everything switched, and now it seems like Democrats want the wars, and Trump does not want any war at all.
Yeah, it did switch. I mean, it's a fact, right? Because I think Trump, I mean, for one example, Trump won the working man.
Yes.
Teamsters, which is a big union,
Yes.
they didn't come out and say that they were going to back him, but they didn't endorse any other candidate, and they were
That's huge.
So that was leaning that way a little bit more. That was the first time they didn't endorse a Democratic candidate in I don't know how many decades.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was one thing. So I think he won the working man, right? I think
He won Latinos.
he won Latinos, and he won a good majority, largest majority of African Americans.
Correct.
So I think those things were like a telltale. Like I think the average guy, even though he's a billionaire, right? I think the average guy was like liking that message of what he was saying, and I don't think they liked the message of the Democratic Party. I mean, if you think back to JFK, his famous saying, and I say this all the time, what was his famous quote? He said, "Ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country. Ask not what you can do for
you.
but what." Yeah. So I'm like, okay, if he said that now, right? I mean, that's crazy. If he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country now," at the Democratic National Convention, what do you think would happen?
Meltdown.
They would boo him off the stage.
Yes.
So I think it was different. I think it was different. You know, I think back then it was a little bit. It was always leaning that, and I think that's why the Democratic Party had such a wide margin amongst blacks and brown and is because it seemed like they were the party of the people back then, and now I think it totally flipped. And I think the reason why it flipped is because I think the left went so far left, like beyond. And I think there was this like, whoa, we can't agree with that. That's just too crazy for us. You might have somebody just left of center, but I think they went so far. Like it was like, you're all in on everything we say or nothing. And I think there was a lot of people that maybe they don't agree with some of this, and maybe they agree with some of that. And I think we got away from that. Now it's like all in either side. And I think that's not the right way.
Polarizing.
Yes.
It seems like I want to say 20 years ago, the left was basically introduced. There was no far left at all in America.
Right.
But then Obama and his new laws, everything that he did, racism, and etc. This is when the extreme left occurred.
Right.
And Trump, he just exposed it.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly in 2020, people were like, "Who are all those genders? Why trans people? Why can't they do that? And why can those people groom children at school with all those textbooks, all those stories, drag queens, etc.?" And people were like, "What is that all about?" And it took you 4 years to acknowledge it, and basically on November 5th cast the right vote.
When Trump won that first time around, right? It's so crazy that he won. Period. I literally told a guy like maybe a year before that. He's like, who do you think will get the Republican national nominee? Who would be it? And I said Trump.
Really?
And he laughed at me. And I go,
You genuinely thought so?
I did.
Why?
I just felt like the message wasn't. I felt like it was a message that was going to connect to people that were tired of politicians. And he was so popular outside of politics and successful, I felt like people were going to go like, let me take a look at that. And then it got real polarizing, right? He won anyways. And then it was rough. It was a tough 4 years. I think there was a lot of positives, but it was just battling back and forth. So when he lost to 2020, I said, okay, like I was a little bit bummed out because I did vote for him, But then I said, well, I think America has to get so low.
The best thing that could happen to America.
Right. And I think we have to realize where we're actually headed and see a glimpse of it, that people are gonna want to change. And even people thought like that's weird thinking. No, he should have won, and that's wrong. And I was like, no, I think it was probably, and I mean, it was probably God that said, okay, you guys want this?
Take a look.
No problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm gonna give it to you. And I felt in my heart like this next 4 years is gonna suck, and we're gonna get so low, and things are gonna be exposed, and we're gonna see that the people that were just left of center are gonna be like, I just can't. And that's exactly what happened, I believe. I believe like a lot of those people were like, hey man, like this, I don't agree with that. Like, you want to teach trans stuff to my kids, you can keep that in your home and in your places. But if you want to do it with my kids, I don't want them to learn any of that. And these were regular, everyday Americans. Just maybe they were Democrats, maybe they were lifelong Democrats, but they were like, I'm not for that. I'm not for starting a war with these people. I'm not for leaving our soldiers, in Afghanistan and just leaving them to die and leaving all our equipment. I'm not for funding all these things. That's not for me. I don't want to do that. So I think it got so low that even those people that are just left of center had to really go, yeah, this guy is asleep at the wheel. They're lying to us that he's, actively involved in making decisions. He can't walk. He's not all there. And when how is he going to lead us?
And when he's there, he's literally sniffing kids.
Yeah.
How can you explain that?
That was wild, man.
Right? Not once, like almost every time.
Right.
Sniffing kids.
It's crazy.
Can you hide it? Can you hide the kids from him?
Right. It was just so many things, and it's hard because I still have friends that are just hardcore, Democrats. Hardcore
Democrats or Biden Democrats?
Just Democrats. Like whatever they say, they do.
Still?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
And I feel bad because a lot of times I'm like, bro, you're way too smart to not see what's going on here.
Bro, they found cocaine in the White House.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
What else do you need, bro?
And
hookers?
They never have a defense for it, right?
Yeah.
Their defense is, well, what about Trump? And I'm like, that's not a defense for this. Like, they found cocaine.
Whose cocaine is this?
The laptop was real. There was no Russia thing going on. They lied about that. Like, what do you have to? Well, what about Trump? Guys, just explain this. Tell me why the media never talks about these things.
We did not vote for Elon. What about Fauci?
Oh, brother.
No one voted for Fauci.
Nobody voted for Fauci.
But why did you listen to him?
The IRS is not in the Constitution.
Bro, the
ATF is not in the Constitution. But we have it, right? I didn't vote for any of that. I didn't vote for the IRS. I just found out recently that when they first started doing income tax, I think it was like in 1948, on your salary, on your check that you get from your company, that it was only 1%. 1%.
No, it's what?
Oh, it's like almost what? Depends where you live. Depends where you live.
California, it's like 40%.
You're 40%. You get the 33 from the federal, and then you get like another, depending where you live, right? What county you're from, 8, 9%. So I'm like, guys, I mean, just do a little research. That's all I ask. Like, be open-minded. And I've had a lot, I'll grant this, I've had a lot of people that I've known the other way too. 2016, hardcore, anti-Trump, anti-Republican, anti-any conservative value. I wouldn't say values, but conservative beliefs. Mm-hmm. And then now they're like,
Trump.
I literally saw, I work construction, right? So one of my buddies was he was wearing a Trump sweatshirt. It had Trump on the back, right? A hoodie. And I was like, what the heck? He goes, hey, D, listen. He goes, 8 years ago, I wasn't about that. But now me, all my tias, that's Spanish for aunties. Me, all my tias, my whole family, we love him. We like what he does. And I'm like, this is crazy. So it's gone both ways. I think it's gone both ways.
So the way that the U.S. casted their vote on November 5th is the U.S. What about California? Is California about to wake up too?
Oh, man. I'm going to say yes. And the reason why I'm going to say yes is because I think spiritually people are going to wake up. And I know that if the hearts of men are changed, men and women are changed, their minds are going to be changed.
Mm.
So if God touches their hearts, their beliefs are going to get changed. And so I believe that there's a great revival going to happen in California.
Let me ask you this question. Let's take 2 years ago, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. What would you say US was portrayed in European news outlets or magazine or newspapers?
Oh, man. That's a tough one.
Liberal or conservative? How the US was portrayed?
You're asking me to guess? Because
Yes. What do you think?
I would say conservative.
Really?
Yeah.
God-fearing or secular?
God-fearing.
Bro,
No?
you're 100% wrong.
Really?
Yes. Why? So I lived in Lithuania for 33 years.
Okay.
Every time I watch news outlets, newspapers, TV, it doesn't matter, right? Then we lived in Spain. If you hear something from BBC, from other German, French news outlets, etc., what they told us about the US, super liberal, super blue, super progressive, secular.
Right.
Can you imagine my surprise when we got to the US? And I was like, I have a friend right here. She lives in Calabasas. Like, can you take me to church? Because I've seen the churches that look like, not like museums like the Catholics have, but way different. Right? Can you take me to church? She was like, yeah. So I go to church in Westlake Village and I hear them singing. I was like, what are they doing? Singing. Like, why? Because they sing. They can. In month 2, 3, 4 months, I realized that this country, super conservative,
Yes.
super red, super God-fearing.
Right.
In 33 years that I lived in Lithuania, I have never had a single discussion with my peers, friends, acquaintances about God.
Oh, wow.
Zero.
Wow.
People here, they quote Bible. They know what's Jeremiah 1:5. They know what's Joshua 1:9.
Yeah.
They know that stuff. They know what's Matthew 7:7. Ask and you will be given. So this country is portrayed in Europe or in other places is way different than the country it is in reality.
Okay.
They're lying.
It's crazy that you say that, right? Because what did we just find out this past week? Through Doge. So the Department of Government Efficiency.
USAID paid a lot of money
to news outlets
Yes.
in other countries to spread an agenda, right?
More than 20 countries, right?
Yeah.
BBC,
Yeah.
millions of dollars.
So
I wonder why.
for so many years, they're spreading this propaganda all over the world about us. That was the thing with California with me. Because I walk around, and like you said, people are going to church.
Mhm.
People love to work hard. People are paying their taxes. And you'll get your liberal friends, and you still love them. They're your friends. They're your family.
But they don't dress, men don't dress in...
But they don't believe in a lot of stuff that's going on, right? There's gay guys I work with.
no problem with gays.
No, I mean they're. I'm like, hey, but I haven't asked them, but I feel like they have conservative views on a lot of things, right? Maybe they voted for Trump. I can't tell their other friends, but who knows, right? But I feel like they have reasons. Maybe they want a better economy. Maybe they want to be safe, right?
Of course.
So I'm thinking, all these guys I'm working with, Hispanics, white guys, dudes from the street, different areas of LA. They kind of have they're trying to buy a home. They're good family men. Like I'm thinking, like, where are all these people that they keep telling us on the news that they're like the majority of the rioters are not the majority of LA.
Of course.
If you have you looked at any of these videos from the people that are protesting
Right now in downtown?
Yeah. Look at the comments. If you look at the comments, I'm Mexican. I came to this country.
I oppose that.
Yeah, this is not a representation of us. It is 90% of a comment similar to that, going all the way down. This is not a good look. This is not who we are.
Of course.
And so, but what does the news show? The news shows, these kids out there, and they're saying, hey, they're rioting, they're doing this stuff because their family this. Half those kids never been to Mexico. Probably more than half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they couldn't name a town where their family came from originally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of weird that the news is this propaganda arm of a political party.
One-sided.
One-sided. And that's the part where I tell people like you don't see it. You know what I mean? You don't see like what they're doing here. Like I'm frustrated sometimes with friends and even some family where I'm like, it's obvious. Like they're pulling the wool over your eyes and you don't see this. You watch the news. What does the news say? It's one-sided, the whole news. Everything. Everything is one-sided. Why don't they ever show the other side? If Trump does something good, why don't they celebrate it? Why don't they say, hey, this is great? Why don't they just report it? Right? They couldn't even celebrate, and they to the point of where you let men come into women's sports.
And basically kick the shit out of real women.
Yeah, and nobody says, and you can't say it's wrong? Who's telling you that you can't say it's wrong?
Okay, let me ask you then this. Sweden, you know the country Sweden?
Mm-hmm.
Great country, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be a great country.
So they say. I've never been there.
Official statistics. What would you say is the number of bombings, explosions that occurred in Sweden this year, January 1st to January 31st, in 1 month?
In Sweden?
In Sweden, how many?
I haven't heard any. I would say none.
30 plus.
30
A month.
bombs.
Yes.
Like terrorist bombs?
Gangs.
Gangs.
They blow up. They blew up each other. In 2023, more than 200. 2022, more than 200. 2024, I believe more than 300 bombings.
Wow.
Almost one a day in Sweden. Super socialist country of Europe, right?
And liberals always say that Sweden's great.
It's great. It's paradise. You pay like 60% of taxes and you get this amazing what?
Medical
One explosion
care.
a day?
Yeah.
And the country is not that huge. The territory-wise, it's huge.
I never knew that.
Nobody knows that. But if you just Google it, you'll
Wow.
find out. 30 bombings just in January of this year. Great start. So socialism works, right? It doesn't.
It doesn't work. It's been proven. You don't have to look far for that, right? You look in the history of the world. You know, it gets me.
Just like you said, it feels like they don't see, they're blind. Communist social is amazing. Look at the history, track record of the socialists and communists.
When? And I even get it small. We talked about the news and what they portray, right? Like, when has anybody that wanted to silence news ever been the good guys? Right?
Never.
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 Right? And I don't. I mean, we both have podcasts. I don't want any. I'm grateful.
Of course.
I mean, we're sitting here. This is going to one day be, whenever you put it out, it's going to be broadcast around the world. If it can't, put it out there. No problem. Nobody might have a little.
But don't you dare talking this.
It might have a little censorship on YouTube or certain. But realistically, you can put it out pretty much anywhere because that's the country we live in.
Correct.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. I tell people like that's not everywhere. I think the biggest problem with Americans, different from you big time, because I know you traveled a lot, is because we never go nowhere.
Bingo.
We never go to another country. I have friends that are tattoo artists, right? Grew up in, you talk about bad neighborhoods, grew up in really bad neighborhoods, grew up really poor, really rough. Because of their talent of tattooing, they've been able to travel around the world. You know what they tell me when they come back from traveling around the world?
The best country in the world.
This is the best country in the world. I don't care. These are hood guys, and they travel around the world and they come back and they go, it's no place like America, dude. I don't care what anybody says.
Correct.
It is wild to me. And I think the problem is we don't go outside of just our four walls, our phone, or the news outlet that we think is giving us all the information, right? We don't do any research. I want to believe this and I'm going to stick to this. That's it. I don't want to broaden my horizons. I don't want to do any research. And that goes for everything. It goes for God. It goes for politics. It goes for the news. Hey, if you did a little research and looked at the other side a little bit, I think you would kind of see what's going on here. I think they're afraid to look at the other side because they don't want to admit that they were wrong.
If you admit that you're being wrong, you're afraid that you're gonna get ashamed, right?
Sure.
But if you were a Christian, you know that change is great. Once you admit that you're a sinner, you did all that stuff, and you're gonna admit a
Right.
lot of shit in the future.
Right.
But you just repent. You ask God, please forgive me, right? This is the whole point of Christianity. I've done these horrible things. I did this, said that, and etc. Please forgive me. From now on, I'll try to be a better person. So Christianity will save the world if people will acknowledge it and if they will accept it. But they won't.
I think there's nothing better than somebody admitting that they were wrong.
Correct.
Right? I mean, I have the utmost respect. But instead of holding the line for a lie or holding the line to a belief that you know is not wrong, that is wrong, it makes you look bad. But if you say, you know what, I did believe this at one time.
Better change.
I did believe that socialism was the way to go. I did believe that anti-God was the way to go.
Correct.
Now I don't believe that anymore. This is what I believe. I have like way more respect for the guy that admits he's wrong and makes the correction, makes the change, and says, yeah. I mean that's like the utmost respect. But I think a lot of people get into, because I think this is what I think. I think they put it out there so much, right? We know each other's lives more than we ever have because we just post everything. And I think there's a lot of people that post so much stuff, and they're like, well, I can't go back on that now.
It's too late.
It's too late, and I'll look like a fool. But I think it's totally opposite. I think when they go, I was wrong. This is not true. Mm-hmm. This is not true. I believed in that, but that's not who I was. This is who I am now. I think the person that admits that and says, yeah, I'm changed now. I see the light.
Yeah, but you have to teach this right from childhood, right? You have to teach your kids. Did you do that? No. Really? Yeah, Daddy, I did that. Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to admit. You have to confess.
Right.
Yes, I did that. I was wrong. So take me to Latino community. First of all, Latinos and Hispanics, the same thing or not?
Oh man, you're asking the wrong guy. I'll be honest on that one. It depends. I mean, it depends who you ask. To be honest, I think it's funny that you say that because it's you fill out something at school, like your test, your state test, right? And when you're a kid, you're filling it out, and it asks you, your gender, and ask you your race. And they would all, Hispanic, white, Native American, maybe Asian, African American, black, And
but actually, this is not true. There are only 3 races, right? It's Caucasians that are whites. I want to say how they Mongolians, something like that, that are Asians. And how the blacks or something.
No, they categorize it as on your on these tests they'll put all these 4 different things. They usually will put
Oh, you have to check the box.
Yeah,
I got
you.
I thought
or
you had
other,
to fill it up.
Or you put other. So I would always put other because we were Christian American. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And for me, and this is the weird part. This is another weird dynamic in LA, right? So we talked about Chicano being, American, Mexican heritage, right?
Correct.
Mexican descent, and it's kind of it's a negative thing. And then there's another thing behind that. You can be 100% Mexican and be born here, maybe first generation, mm-hmm. and not speak Spanish, mm-hmm. and you're looked down upon.
That's bad as well.
It's bad as well. So for a Latino, it's going to be like, it's always something, mm-hmm. it's always something like, okay, maybe you're not Mexican enough, or maybe you're too American, you have to, it's just always something within that realm. And I think that's different. So it depends who you ask. Me personally, I think Latino will kind of be for every Latino person. Uh-huh. So it can be, wherever you're from, South America, wherever you're from. And I think Hispanic kind of goes back and forth with that. So it's hard. I wouldn't say that I'm the best guy to ask that question, but it depends who you ask. Some people are very offended if you call them Hispanics. Now I will agree that if they call you Latinx, that doesn't go with anybody. Nobody likes that.
Latinx?
Yeah, there was some politician that started Latinx, and it was like for everybody, and he wanted to start this thing. So some people jumped on it, and then they started saying it, and then they realized that the Latin Hispanic community didn't like that name, so they changed it. It's weird.
Let's take an average Latino or Hispanic family, right? What are the values? Because why I'm asking? Every time I see some crazy liberals that have transitioned their kids or something like that,
right?
They're almost always either white or black. No Mexicans, no Latinos, no Hispanics, no Asians. Why?
Wow. So I'll give you a little background. So my last name, my great grandfather, our Arebalo name is from Mexico. And then I have my mom's side. Her mother was French and German, mm-hmm. and her father, we think they were Mexican. We're not 100% sure.
Okay.
And then on just my grandfather for our last name it comes from is Mexican.
Okay.
But growing up, we grew up as, okay, what are you? And so it was very difficult because I had on my, my grandmother on my dad's side was, Filipino, and then my grandfather was Mexican, and she was like Filipino and Spaniard. And then we talked about Spain earlier, and then on my mom's side, it was like we didn't really know my grandfather. Their last name's Calvary, and so we're like, okay, but we brought up as being Mexican. We thought, okay, and then her mother was white, so a good mix for us. So for me, it was really difficult, but I grew up around Mexican. When people would ask me, I'd say, well, we're Mexican. That's what we are. And then when we became Christian, my dad would say, well, we're Christian American. That's our heritage. But I think when you go to like I think the values, right? I think Hispanic community accepts that, but it's weird how you're right. It's like rich and white want to transition their kids, and I have a theory why rich and white people want to transition their kids, and it could be rich and white or a rich whatever. Mm-hmm. Why they want to transition? I think it becomes like a badge of honor for those parents. They think in their mind, like, look at me. My kid is 4 years old and said he's a boy and he wanted to be a girl. So I put a dress on him. Look at me. I'm a great parent. That's the way it seems to me. It seems like it's one of those things where they try to say,
it seems like you have nothing to impress your neighbors with, and this is the only thing how to start the conversation.
I think they want to be a part of some sort of like thing online. And if you watch, a lot of them will post it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then they get all these likes and I'm like,
lots of them in Hollywood.
Your kid, I mean, why? And they're 4 years old. They last week they wanted to be a dinosaur.
Yeah. Convert them.
Yeah.
Why not?
So I think it's in all communities though. I think all communities are way more open to it now. I really feel the main issue is just it becomes like this badge of honor for these parents.
Did you grow up with the mom and dad?
Yes.
Let's say you were 10 years old and you come up to your dad and say, "Dad, I want to be a girl." Would you get slapped?
I would get laughed at for sure.
What if you say like 10 times, 10 days in a row? Stop it.
Yeah, I would be like, yeah, no.
Average Mexican, Latinos, Hispanics do that? Would do that even now?
I think so. Yeah.
Whites would never do that.
Huh.
How come? How can you raise your voice? No chance. It's so offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Abuelos and abuelas are more respected in amongst Hispanics than amongst whites.
You come from a good family, you respect your family, yeah.
Do grandmas and granddads are more respected than parents because they're older?
I think it's a different respect.
But you listen to what they say.
Yes, for the most part.
Even now, in 2025.
If
your kids listen to your abuela?
Oh, their grandpa and grandma? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I believe amongst whites, it's like it was done, I won't say 20 to 30 years ago. We kind of, they're old, they're stupid. They don't know how to use iPads. Grandma, what do you know?
I think that's across the board, though. I don't think it's necessarily a race thing, right? I think more kids are turned.
Whites are more liberal. We're liberated from being parented.
You think that?
I think so, yeah.
Really?
Because amongst the blacks, I had two guests that were African Americans. They were like, no. I listen to my grandma. There is no way I disrespect my grandma or my grandfather or even my mom.
Right.
I'm gonna get slapped.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I think there'll always be kids that are going to be disrespectful towards their parents and their grandparents.
Let's say your kid, 10 years old, comes up to you and says, "Dad, I want to be a girl." After 2 months of negotiations, you say, "Okay," but your mom, she's alive.
Mm-hmm.
But your mom finds out.
Yeah.
She beats the shit out of you for this decision, right? How could you do that to my grandchild? There's no way. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah. I think there is, I mean, look, there is a thing where you're the parents and then there's the grandparents. I think it's different. For my family, and even when I look at my kids now with their grandparents and their interaction, it's a different respect. Maybe with your parents, there's a little bit more fear in that respect, a good fear. And I think with the grandparents, there's a factor of, this is my grandfather, I have respect for him, let me listen to him. Now, do they do always time what he says? Maybe not. But I think they take the time to say, okay, this is a patriarch of our family, we're going to listen to him. But I think with parents, there is a little bit of fear. But I think you get to a point in time as a kid, once again, where we talked about, as a teenager, you might be not listening to anybody. Mm-hmm. And then you get to a little bit of an adult and you realize once again,
Mom was right.
Yeah.
You have to go outside. Sun is great.
Right. I got to get a job now. I got to work. I got to pay bills. They were right. I should have did this. So I think there's a different level of respect. I think in the Hispanic community, I think there is, a little bit more respect for the elderly. I can't call the white what they do.
But do you agree that whites are more liberal than Hispanics? By liberal, I mean more secular, right? The fourth commandment, honor your mom and dad. If you're more secular, more liberal, you don't know the 10 commandments.
I don't know if it's a cultural thing, though.
Really?
I wouldn't agree that it's like whites are less respectful of their parents and grandparents. I wouldn't say that. I would say probably the structure of the family is what matters the most. Because some people say, well, black and brown, it's just horrible. There's not enough fathers in their lives, and I think, you can say that about white people too. So I think across the board has problems. I don't think there's one race that probably raises their family. I can 100% say they raise their families better. I'll tell you this though, when you have two parents in the home and a father that's taking care of business, that's the difference.
Correct.
I think that's the biggest difference. Because you can be white.
Okay, but name me at least one celebrity that is Hispanic or Latino that transitioned her kids or his kids.
I couldn't tell you. Okay, if we're talking about Hollywood, that's a whole different thing.
There were more whites.
There's an actress right now. I think she transitioned 3 of her sons.
Oh, Charlize Theron
or Angelina Jolie. Megan Fox.
Megan Fox.
Yeah, they transitioned three of her. How does? Maybe you have.
Yeah, she said I dug into it. She she didn't transition. She let her kids be what they want to be and dress like they
Yeah.
wanted. So basically, boys are being dressed like girls in skirts, and she's saying that I'm good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and she says that they want it to be girls.
But then Gina Jolie has a trans kid. Jennifer Garner has a trans kid. Charlize Theron, I believe, she has one adopted African American kid that she transitioned. He became a she. You've got Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, that's one of the
I
biggest.
want to say even Shaq. I believe even
Magic.
Magic. Shaq, I'm sorry.
Magic.
But Magic. Legend of LA.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
How could you do that? And no Latinos, tell me. Name me at least one.
I don't know.
You
know,
do something better than us.
Maybe there's something there. I don't know. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's a shame thing. I don't know. Maybe it's more hidden. I don't know the theory on that. I couldn't answer that. I know but you're right. I was gonna say amongst stars, it's like a little. Well, hey, look what I got. I got a trans kid. Hey, I'm part of the club now. I got money, I got fame, and a trans kid. That's how they look at it.
Do Latinos struggle with the fatherlessness in 2025?
Sure.
Why? So let's say 20 years ago, there were gangs, killings, maybe some parents, some fathers went to prison, etc. But now, if the gang activity decreased, why there is still fatherlessness? Because of the promiscuity of women?
Oh yeah, there's fathers that they start off, they want to be a father, and then they leave. They leave these mothers. There's mothers' sexual activity. They get pregnant, and the father doesn't want to stick around. They leave. It happens. It's like anything else.
Let's say you became a state senator. This is the problem that you want to solve. Any suggestions how to solve it?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you can't shame people. Like, I think the problem is that then when you say the biggest problem in America is fatherless homes.
Do you agree with that?
Oh yes, 100%.
Because out of fatherlessness comes out a lot
So many
of
stuff.
bad things.
Boys don't know how to be men, and I'm big on this. This is one of my biggest beliefs. So, as good as a mother can be, she can do her very best. And there's a lot of great men that got raised in fatherless homes. I agree with that. But there's certain things that your mother can't teach you about being a man.
Correct.
There's just certain things, and vice versa.
Correct.
There's things that I can't teach my daughter
or son.
Yeah, and I need my wife.
Correct.
So we balance each other out. My wife's telling me, hey, you need to be a little bit soft with your daughter. If my wife's being too soft with my son, then I'm saying, hey, he needs a little kick in the butt here. I'll take care of it, and we kind of balance each other out. But when you're missing a parent, and particularly the father, that's an issue, because the father is what leads. If he has a daughter, he's going to show her what a man looks like, right? A good man. If he's a good father, he's going to show her. She's going to look for somebody that's pretty much like her father. He's going to protect me. He's going to provide for me, look out for me. He's going to love me. He's going to show me the way. He's going to lead our home, right? When you don't have a father and there's a son in the home, there's nobody to show this guy how to be a man, right? Hey, you're going to take some wins. You're going to get some losses. It's okay, son. Keep going.
How to defend yourself.
Yeah, how to defend yourself, how to work hard, how to wake up early, all that stuff. And a mother could show him that, sure. But there's certain characteristics that men have that only men understand. Our boys can understand, and vice versa. It just goes together. It was the way that's the way God intended this world to be. And so the fatherless homes, if you look at the stats, people that are in prison, what happened? You ask men in prison, did you have a dad? A large percentage, no, there was no dad in the home.
I believe the statistics say you've got 20 times more chances of going to prison if you were raised only by a single mom.
And daughters have a greater chance of being pregnant, being promiscuous early on. There's so many different variables, but if you nail it all down, it goes back to fatherless homes.
So fathers leave or they are asked to leave by mom?
I would say a large majority abandon their children.
But it's crazy that fathers abandon their children, but not mothers.
No.
A child is like 50-50, right?
Yeah.
And mom gave a birth, but DNA
Yeah.
is 50-50.
Sure.
It's your child just like
Yeah.
as...
Yeah, and I get the whole. I mean, we'll get people that are going to be in the comments and say, "Well, this and that, and the relationship didn't work out, and all that stuff." But if it's just straight up abandonment, not being there for your children, I know great fathers that are no longer in the home, but they're there for their children every day. Then I know fathers that just totally don't talk to their kids no more.
Mm-hmm. So what's the solution? How to solve it? I believe if you solve this problem, a lot of problems are going to be solved in the next 10 to 20 years.
I think we have sons, and we teach them the right way. The next generation. You're not going to
start with the next generation.
It's going to start with the next generation. Hey, this is what we do. Don't allow your son to take an easy route out. Hey, you're going to be man enough to lay down with them, but you better make sure that you marry her, number one, as Christians. Mm-hmm. Number two, you better, if you get her pregnant, you're going to be that kid's father. If you're not willing to do that, then don't have kids. And also teaching the daughters to save themselves. Why are you out there just sleeping with any old guy, getting pregnant, having kids, 2-3 kids from 2-3 men? That needs to stop. It just causes problems, and you're going to have those problems for almost your entire life after. And where does the generation change? I know friends that generations of fatherless homes. Mm-hmm. Sad.
It's like a disease.
Sad. Mm-hmm. And it's like you just saw what that creates a generation before, and you didn't do anything about it. Like, change that. So I think the men in our society, and that's a whole nother thing, because we emasculated men and being men. They have, right? As a society, we have, right? It's bad to be a man. It's bad to, be a construction worker and wake up every day, right? Oh no, it's bad to it's bad to be tough. It's bad to be a protector. Don't get involved. It's everything that a man was, is frowned upon a lot of times. Or they're telling us. I shouldn't say they're telling us that it's bad, right? I think those are all. That's what we're intended to do.
I always ask this question. So, name me 3 celebrities from the 90s, Hollywood celebrities. What would you say they were?
What do you mean?
Schwarzenegger.
Stallone,
right?
Sylvester Stallone. Yeah.
Name me 3 celebrities right now. Biggest movie stars in Hollywood.
The Rock.
Really?
I think he's pretty big.
Okay.
Tom Hanks.
Really? He's 60 plus years old.
I mean.
So the biggest stars right now, Timothée Chalamet from The Dune.
Okay.
Tom Holland from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
What do they have in common?
Man, I'm old, huh?
No muscular? No muscle? Would you consider them as great men? I mean, muscular men or men that have responsibilities? No, they're just youngsters. Well, they're almost 25 to 28 years old, but they look like youngsters.
Right.
But in the 90s, we had this Schwarzenegger, big. I started working out because I wanted to be big like Will Smith.
Yeah.
I watched the Bad Boys too. Bro, this guy was huge back then. I watched the iRobot. He was doing this workout. Like, whoa, this is spec. I want this kind of...
Right. I mean, well, look who I named, right? That was like The Rock. That was the first one.
He's 50. 50 plus.
So maybe it's an age thing for me,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
But once again, we named the 80s ones.
Mm-hmm.
80s, 90s stars.
Yeah.
And who was the first guy I go to? I go to the more masculine guy first.
Yes.
Right? I'm saying, and I don't agree with all his views, but I'm just saying, like,
no one agrees.
He's right on with The Rock. He's changed though a little bit.
Schwarzenegger?
No, The Rock. Schwarzenegger. Yeah, Schwarzenegger went the other way.
Schwarzenegger? Yeah. Screw your freedom.
Yeah, he's out there now. I can't believe I voted for him.
Yeah, but bro, remember those movies? Those guys were saving the world from evil terrorists and killers. What's bad about that?
That's a problem now. I mean, we just saw the actor that said that's playing Captain America,
Man,
and he put America down, right, in an interview.
that's. I hope this movie is going to flop.
I do
big
too.
time.
But why did he feel he had to do that? Like, you didn't know
Just
you were
keep
playing
silent.
Captain America?
Just keep silent, bro.
Okay,
Shut up.
yeah, I'm gonna take this check, right, from this movie about Captain America. I'm gonna play this role, but then I gotta downplay it on the other side because I don't want to get these people mad.
Bro, he's done. This is his last chance of becoming a celebrity. This movie is going to flop.
All you had to do, he didn't even have to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I play Captain America. It's a character.
I saved the world, just like America does.
Yeah, I saved the world. This character's been around for 60 years in comic books.
Yeah.
I mean, great.
Steve Rogers.
You know, thank you. I think it's the first black Captain America. Great.
Yes, great.
Capitalize off of that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but to say yeah, this, America's not that great, and da-da-da. Well, dude, come on.
What do you think of pornography? Do you think it destroys people?
Oh, 100%.
When did you realize that? Because there is a certain point in life when a male realizes that pornography freaking destroyed your maybe decades of life.
Yeah, I thankfully stayed away from pornography my whole life.
Really?
Yes.
How did you manage to do that?
The conviction of the Lord in my life, man.
Oh, you were raised as a Christian?
I was raised as a
I
Christian.
got you.
So I, thankfully, right, because I had a lot of friends that would, fell in for that. And I would be like, there was a time when you would, found a magazine. What is it? Oh, what the heck? Or somebody wants to show you something in I'm saying magazine because we didn't have the phones.
Yeah.
But hey, and I stood away from that. But it will destroy.
Even then, those girls were beautiful. That was Playboy.
They were all natural.
All natural beauty, bro, not the plastic.
They're all natural. They looked like pretty women, right?
Yeah.
But I never, and I'm not saying, I always tell people as a man, sure, sure, it's tempting. Sure, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
As a Christian man, it's not the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always stayed away. But I've known men who have struggled with that for years and fell victim to that. And it's the crazy thing about pornography. It's never enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's never enough. You've seen the movie Gladiator, right?
The new one?
No, not the new one. The original, the Gladiator,
the OG.
right?
Yes.
He defeats the emperor, right? The new emperor, Joaquin Phoenix, right? Yeah. He kills his dad, becomes the emperor.
Yes.
If you read about that emperor, and he was a real person. And remember when in the movie he kept messing with there was these undertones of
with
him,
sister,
sexual undertones, and even that you see the sister kind of protecting the son away from this guy, and it was a weird kind of it was more than protecting him because he's evil, right? It was more he's like a sexual deviant or something like that, right? And with the sister too, it was weird. He made a little pass at her, and I was like, oh, this guy's really evil. And you thinking you're watching the movie it's evil, but if you read about that emperor, he had a problem, and it gets to all the way to young boys, and he wanted young boys. And if you think about it, he's the emperor, no problem for having women, right? And then
but you have to have boys,
and then it gets the perversion of that, right? Gets more, and you have every woman, multiple women, right? And then the perversion grows. So now what do you want? Well, let's try men. And the perversion grows, right? And then it's multiple, and it's weirder, and now it's bisexual, and then the perversion grows, and now you want children. And so when I think about pornography, it starts with something small, and it's never enough. It's greater than a drug, because you just can't have enough. And before long, it leads to a road of, what the heck am I doing? And so I think I've seen it destroy men in their marriage, in their home. It's an evil thing, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's on our phone. It's immediate now. Before, you would have to drive to the triple X store, and go in there and do your thing. Now it's in the palm of your hand. You can go in the next room and your family can be here watching a movie and you can watch it. Pornography, it's always been evil and it's been around since the beginning of time.
You know what's crazy to me is every time I heard those stories of Catholic priests being pedophiles, I was like, okay, so they have to keep celibate, but they can have women, right? Why not have women? Okay, so you belong in hell, but you're a pedophile. But why do you choose boys, not girls, but boys? I will never understand that.
I think because they have more access to boys.
Really?
The boys are altar boys. They serve in the church. They're around them, and maybe.
Yes, one pastor, I want to say a year ago, said that in his opinion, why Catholics have this problem with pedophilia is because of the power. The priests have this amount of power; they want to rule, and this is just one of a kind. How do you rule someone else?
Sure.
Just by.
It's an ugly chapter in the Catholic Church with that.
So, I lived in Lithuania for 33 years. Just like I told you, I have never had a discussion or a conversation about God, etc. I became Christian just last year, right? So
awesome.
The problem with me was I always thought that everything that I see in Catholicism and Lithuania is very Catholic. Catholicism, in my mind, equals God. I didn't want to have anything in common with Catholics at all. I didn't like the priests. I didn't like their churches. I don't like there being a lot of saints and icons and praying on all those traditions, etc. So in my mind, God is Catholicism. I don't want to be a part of it. But once I got here, like, wait a minute. So this is the same God, yeah, Jesus Christ, right? The Holy Trinity, yeah. But they worship God singing, churches, not the museum like churches.
Different.
Pastors, they can have kids. They dress like normal dudes.
Yeah.
They don't have the symbols like the Vatican does or every other big church.
Right.
This is how I converted to Christianity.
Wow. Yeah, it's different.
It's way different.
It's different. Yeah, I think I think Catholicism, it's been around for thousands of years. So has Christianity, but I think Catholicism kind of ruled in a lot of the major cities. Rome. And I think if that's all you grew up with, and there's a lot of Hispanics, that's all they grew up with. All they grew up with is the Catholic Church. Going to church, going to mass. Easter and Christmas, they were at church, right? Sunday, they go and pay their respects, and they leave, and they live a wild life the rest of the week, right? And I think when you really figure out who God is and see that, it's totally different. Especially here in America, I think it's different.
It's way different. You don't have to do this, right? You don't have to wear something. You don't have to even go on your knees. You can pray in your mind. You can pray wherever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. You don't have to abide those crazy traditions.
Right.
That's it. You just honor Jesus Christ. And the main part is you read the Bible.
Yeah.
I was baptized when I was 4 to 5 months old. And I asked my dad like 2 years ago, why did you baptize me? He said, well, your grandma wanted to baptize you. I was like, do you know what it means to get baptized? He's like, no. Why did you do that? I don't know. I heard a friend of mine. So his daughter was born 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. He sent me photos from the church that, and you can see that he was baptizing his daughter. I was like, I didn't know you were Christian. He said, I'm not. I was like, why did you do it? Do you know what it means to get baptized? No.
Tradition.
Just tradition.
Yeah.
What is that?
Doesn't mean anything, right?
It means nothing at all. I was like, so my grandma, she is 77 years old. So every time we go to a Christmas party, Christmas dinner, Easter dinner, etc., she got to a church and they, sanctified the water, sanctified some food, etc. I was like, who can do that? They're not Jesus Christ, right? So for 30 years we did that. I have never, ever in my life saw a Bible in her house. She has never, ever spoken about God, Jesus Christ. Never. She just went to church, sanctified this liquid or something. We just ate at the Christmas dinner and that's it. So this is Catholicism 101.
Right. When we talk about religion, it's just tradition, really.
Yes.
It's just doing the act.
You won't find it in the Bible.
It's
Show
not-
me.
Yeah, it's not the change, right? It's just I'm going to do this act to feel better about myself. You know what
That's
I mean?
a good point.
And you're not really. There's no connection.
Mhm.
I'm going to go Sunday. I'm going to pay my respects, and then I'm out. And that's in the Christian church too. There's people that go, okay, I'm just going to go on Sunday. But there's no change, right? That's when it's a religion. There's nothing. You're not living it day to day. You're not talking to God every day. You're not reading your word. You're not trying to live better every day. You're just like, okay, well, it's tradition. I'm going to go to church. And, and the rest of the week, I'm going to live like whatever, and there's no God, no nothing. So I think there's a totally difference from religion and relationship. When you get a relationship, you're constantly working to get closer to God.
It becomes a part of your family.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the third person, fourth person in your family.
It becomes a part of your character. It becomes a part of who you are, right? It becomes you. And so when you're living that every day, it's different. But when it's just tradition, I have a lot of traditions, me and my family, we have dinner before Christmas, like yours. Okay, let's have, we're going to get pizza Christmas Eve, and we're going to sit down and we'll watch a Christmas movie. That's a tradition. But a relationship is different. It's more than just tradition.
I've seen this picture, I want to say 2 months ago. Religion, I screwed up, my father is going to kill me. Faith, I screwed up, I have to tell my father.
Yeah.
And
True.
when you acknowledge this, you're like, I screwed up. I have to talk to my father, to my dad. It's like when you were a child, right? Yep. I did something outside. I blew the window into from my neighbor's car. I have to tell my dad because if he finds out, it's gonna be a mess. I'm gonna tell it.
The crazy thing is, he already knows.
Yeah,
he already knows. So what am I afraid of? Just tell him.
So you've been Christian for your whole life, right? Right.
My whole life, man, since I was 6 years old.
Do you have a crazy story of Christianity?
Christianity's fun, man. But my family, like I said, they came from bad lives. Our family's trajectory was going nowhere. And my dad gave his life to the Lord, and it changed the course of our family. And what I mean by that, we were, family was involved in drugs and just, living a wild life.
Selling or using?
Both. Not hardcore. And my dad always said he was a 2-bit drug dealer, and nothing fancy, but he wasn't living a good life. We weren't going anywhere. He was with my mom. They had 3 kids, and they weren't married. They weren't going anywhere in life. And then God saved us. What
did your mom say? Did your mom use drugs as well?
No, smoke a little bit, maybe drink a little bit, but nothing hardcore, nothing too crazy. Just partying. They were young when they gave their life to the Lord, but they lived, a rough life. They came from both just living in the neighborhood, and they were searching. They were searching for a change in their life, and one day they found it and went to church, and God touched them, and immediately the change happened. And then immediately a lot of our family came to Christ fast. A lot of their friends came to Christ fast.
I've seen this said that I believe it's more than 90% chance of if father converts to Christianity, more than 90% chance the family will do that as well.
Yeah. Once again, the father leads.
Yeah.
That was God's order. It was the husband, the father.
God, father, mom, kids.
Yeah. And the dad has a big priority in that. And when the dad leads the home, it's going to be a good home.
Yeah, but the responsibility, the accountability of a father.
It's a lot. Well,
That's a lot.
I know. There's a lot of responsibility as the father. It's was I always the best?
No one's the best. Bro.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not. My wife will say that I'm the best now, which I'm very grateful, and I worked very hard for that, and God's given me a lot of strength for that. But I think if the husband is right, it's a big part of the rest of the family being okay. It just is. We set the tone for the home.
You know what's crazy? Once I started walking with Jesus, I was like, every time I see some kind of a celebrity or a businessman, someone that walks with Jesus right now, and he confesses, I walk with Jesus, right? Or he gets baptized, I'm so happy. And I believe I'm not the only one. Just like in the Bible says, when the lost sheep goes back home, they're like happy. The Lord is happy. The shepherd is happy. The same time is the same thing with the Christians. Every time you see a celebrity or your friend or someone converts to Christianity, you're like, yes,
right.
At last.
It's a great feeling.
It's a great feeling. Like, you're one of us. Great, amazing.
It's a great feeling. It's so funny because you know, what is the gospel? The gospel is the good news of Jesus Christ, right? And it's so built up in us. And we wish everybody knew, right? You're telling everybody. You're running into people. Hey, I'm a Christian. I love God, man. God can do so much in your life if you just accept them. And when they do finally, and you see the change, and they're just like, I should have done this a long time ago. Like what was I waiting for all this time? So it is a good feeling. It is a good feeling to see change. And the change that you see sometimes is not always, you don't see it all the time. It may not be visible. It's not always visible. It can be a change. Like, I have a neighbor across the street. They were there for years. Hey, how's it going? And then she tells us, yeah, I knew there was something different about you and your family. I see you guys leaving for church on Sunday. I see the way you guys live and how you guys interact when you're getting out your car. And she goes, I knew there was something different. That's the amazing feeling that you're able to. And I think a lot of Christians don't realize that, right? We live in a society where, you know, we think that everything has to be posted, right? I did a good deed today. All right, I led this guy to the Lord today. Or I took this person to church today. All that doesn't have to be seen. I don't have I don't have to broadcast that. All I got to do is the little things, right? Every day, the little things. God sees it. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. So do you live by fear of God? So you act, you roll the way that you roll and you act because of fear of God?
There is a healthy fear of God.
Like the fathers?
Like a respect, yes. Like, I know God is a God of love, but he is a God of judgment. You know what I mean? God is a God of, hey, I you know, he has a demands. He has a criteria. You know, I have to meet that criteria in order to get to heaven. Do I meet that criteria? And I'm not perfect, but am I working my way? Am I relying on him for his grace and his mercy to get me there? Yeah, I am. So I think there is a fear, but I don't think it's a fear that you know, I think there's a famous quote in Bronx Tale. And in Bronx Tale, you know, Kalodro asked Sonny, hey, would you rather be feared or loved? And he says, I'd rather be feared because fear lasts longer. And I was like, true, maybe. But to be loved, right? And to do something because you love. I think God's intention was that not that we have a fear of him, but that we love him so much and we're so grateful for all he's done in our life that we want to do right. So you can want to do right because you fear, right? I fear going to jail. I don't want to do that. I don't want to commit a crime. It's not what
How about you go to do?
That's not God's intention. God's intention is, hey, do right because you love me. Two different things. And I think it's a.
I think that should be a separate word for God's love. Because we kind of mix it all up. Love. I love dogs. I love my son.
Sure.
I love my wife. I love podcasting. I love talking to you, right?
Yeah.
But the love of God, it's not the same. It has to be a separate word for that. I believe so.
It's a little bit deeper, right? A little bit deeper, a little bit more meaningful because it's more than when we love our wife. It's more than when we love our children. Yeah, we can have an understanding of God's love as a father to a son, right? But I think that God's love is greater than that. It's so much greater that we don't understand, right? His mercy and grace is, if somebody comes in here and goes off on you, you know, and maybe, you know, you're like, man, this guy was a jerk in my podcast, you know, and maybe the guy apologizes, comes back, and you're like, yeah, I'll have you again. Let's talk about it. He comes on here again, another jerk again, right? What would you do? You'd probably say he's never coming back. It's no way, right?
Not him.
But God says, I'll let him come back. And I'm very thankful that he's that type of God because as a human, I've made plenty of mistakes.
150th time. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have.
Do I deserve
one more
it?
time.
Do I deserve his mercy and his grace? No. Right? But he goes, all right, son, come on back. Come on back.
Do you see the whole world is a spiritual battle?
For sure.
When did you realize that? And what was the tipping point?
Man, I think, I have a little saying like that. I don't think everything's political, but I believe everything is spiritual.
100%.
I think the enemy is always working in the background. And not just the enemy, but I think I know the Lord is working in the background too, right? The enemy's always working. He's never asleep. He's constantly working, right? Working on our mind, working on our health, working on our interactions with people, sending us stuff. We talked about, maybe images on our phone. He's like, nah, I'm gonna chip away at this guy till he fails, right? But I think there's another part of that. I think the Lord is right there, and his angels are fighting for us too, and he's sending his Holy Spirit to give us strength and help us. And I think there is always gonna be a battle for our soul. And that goes with everybody. I think the enemy's fighting a little less for people we already got. Right?
In Jesus' name.
Right? I think there's people out there that he knows I already got this person. I'm gonna leave him right here. I'm gonna go work harder on these guys. It's working harder on me and you for sure.
Oh, you think so?
Oh yes.
I think the vice versa.
Really?
I wouldn't say. I was about to tell you the example that pedophiles always say that they go after the kids that they don't have father figure or the fathers are very weak. Mm-hmm. It's like God. If we have God, the Father,
right,
and He's strong, so demons or Satan is not going after us. But you say this vice versa.
I think he's working harder to.
He wants us to.
Yes. So I think he works overtime for us.
That's good.
For the sinner, he's like, I got them already. They're already part of my team.
Oh, I got you.
You know what I mean? Like they're and so for the believer, he's like, I got to work hard on Apollo because he's
gonna get tired.
Yeah, I wanna see what he's made of, right? I want to see if he's gonna fall back into his old ways. I want to see if he's gonna give up. Now, that's when we lean on the Lord's strength. That's when we lean on the Holy Spirit to help us fight those battles. And there's times when we do feel weak.
Correct.
And the enemy might seem like he's winning a little bit, right? He might be winning the battle, but not winning the war, right? And I think sometimes as Christians, we kind of see like, man, the enemy's jacking me up right now. The enemy's winning. Like, we have to remember, like, okay, if you stay on course, we already won. It's a fixed fight. I tell everybody that all the time. It's a fixed fight.
It's a fixed fight.
We know who's going to win. All he asks is us to endure, to trust in him and to endure. And I think a lot of times we don't do that.
Do you think we entered the end times or the last chapter? Because let's say if I asked you like in early 1990s, you couldn't see any Satan worshiping on stage and music videos, right? And right now, it's
heavy metal was probably the only one that was out there. And
who?
Heavy metal music.
Yeah,
there was in the 80s. It was
but now it's pop music.
Yeah, now it's pop music.
Sam Smith.
Now it's
on the stage. Madonna.
Yeah.
So do you think this is the last chapter? We entered.
Man, a lot of people think it is. And the Bible says we don't know the day or the hour. It can be really bad for us, when we're looking at the landscape. But what if it's not? What if it's another 50 years? The Bible says that one day is like 1,000 years to God. What if he says, you know what? I'm not ready to come back yet. I don't know. Is it horrible right now? Mm-hmm. I mean, some people in some parts of the world will probably say, "Oh yeah, it's awful."
So the way that you live right now, the life that you have right now, would you like for Jesus to come now, or would you like to end your life in 50 years?
I mean, what did Paul say? Paul said he would rather be with the Lord. Right? He said, I'd rather be with the Lord, but because there's work to be done here, I want to stay because there's still things that we need to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, selfishly, I can say, please come now, Lord. And the Bible tells us to pray for that. But then I think about friends or family that don't know Jesus and what they would be left with. So I think there's always a a mixed thing there, right? I mean, man, like I'm not gonna lie, there's some days that are rough, and I'm like, come today, it'd be nice. But then there's days that I'm like, Lord, there's a lot of more people that need you. A lot of people that I'm praying for, a lot of people that I would love to see accept you. Maybe there's a lot more work. But if we're just thinking as far as this world and it being evil and everything that's going on, there's sometimes, I would say, I wish he would come back.
Do you know what I struggle with the most right now? At this moment in my life?
What's that?
I struggle that whether I'm going to like heaven. Because I'm not a millionaire, right? I struggle financially, psychologically from time to time, etc. The podcast is not booming like I wanted to, etc. at this moment.
I feel you on that, brother.
But I'm happy. I have a wife. I have a kid.
Yes.
We're healthy. We live in LA. The weather, everything is fine, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I'm going to like heaven. Because I'm not going to be there with my wife and my kids.
You know
and with my friends.
You know what's funny about that, bro? Is that when we were kids growing up, right? I told you I was a believer my whole life. And we would say as kids, like, well, I don't want the God to come back yet because I haven't lived.
Yes.
Right?
I haven't lived.
There's nothing, I haven't did this. I haven't got married. I want to do these things. And I think heaven is going to be so much greater than we could ever imagine.
Well, it says it's going to be made out of gold. I don't like gold. I like California. I love this climate. I love mountains, ocean.
I think it's gonna be greater than you can ever imagine.
I hope so.
I think the streets of gold is one aspect, right? It's cool. Like, man, streets of gold. Imagine that. Crazy. Pearly gates, right? We know of all these, but I think it's going to be so glorious, and we will see our family members. We will see those that have went before us. I don't think it's going to concern us as much as like we down here, like our wife. You know what I mean? Our kids when they're up there too, and we're all there. I think we're going to just be so in the realm of
God's
being
presence.
in his presence that it's going to overwhelm us all, and all we're going to think about is him and this beautiful place and what he's made for us. I think it's going to be so much greater than we could ever imagine. It's so hard to explain. I don't think there's a way or a word that we can say. And then what are we going to say? It's going to be awesome. Okay, that's minimizing it at the least.
So I have this comparison. When I was a little kid, when I was, let's say, 10 years old, right? The best thing for me was when me, my mom, my dad, I'm the only child in the family. Me, my wife, my mom and dad, we either sat at home and watched some movie or at dinner, or we went outside, just the three of us. And I wanted to, the best place for me was to be in the presence of my mom and dad. If this X100 is going to be in heavens,
Yeah.
I'm down.
Right.
I'm good.
Right. We talk about heaven and we were like, well, am I going to like it? I love the ocean. Me and my wife love the ocean. I can sit out there and I just feel peace. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't live close to the ocean. Never did. I wish I did, but we go to the beach a lot. And I'll sit out there, or we went to Maui, or we go to Cancun. I'm up early and I'm watching the sun come up. And I just love it, right? Or the sun go down.
Sunrise is amazing.
It's amazing. Well, in the Bible, it says no oceans.
Yeah, no oceans.
And so I'm like, Lord, how? This is one of your greatest creations. I don't understand. How could there not be? And then, I was like, I don't understand. Why would he do that? I mean, what's next after the ocean? I would say like the heavens. Like I'm looking at the sky, right? I was like, okay, there's going to be heavens, obviously. But I'm like, Lord, like the ocean. What's up with that? And then doesn't mean that there won't be a body of water. I don't know. I know it's going to be greater than what we could picture. But the reason why there's oceans is because there's separation of, when the world was created, is because there was separation of land, right?
Mm-hmm.
Countries, continents, separation. But what does that create? It creates separation. In heaven, there's not going to be a separation. We're all going to be
So it's going to be like
together.
a dorm?
no dorm. I hope not. We're going to have our mansion.
But with golden walls.
Hey, we're going to have our mansion, bro. So, you can buy whoever you want over.
No, I want a cabin.
Okay.
By the ocean.
Okay. Why not? By a body of water. No oceans.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a great time. I think it's going to be great. I mean, we got to remember, no more pain, no more suffering, no more worry, no more disease. You know the greatest question I'll bring up right here, since we're talking about it, in heaven? Let me ask you a question. What body are you going to be, would you like to be in heaven?
That's a good question. I was always thinking about that.
Right? Like, think about somebody that's 80 something years old right now.
Yeah.
I want to ask, we probably should ask them, right? What body or what era of your life, body wise, physical wise, would you want to be in when you get to heaven?
Probably 30s.
Your 30s. You're in your 30s, right? You feel good? This is your good. I would say that too. Like maybe my early 30s where I felt the strongest, probably the fastest. But I think, man, that's a good question. I wonder what God's going to like assign to like somebody that's like 80 something years old. And for the last 30 years, 20 years, they've been pretty old, maybe in a wheelchair or maybe with a cane.
Yeah,
like
how my kids are going to look like. So for instance, if I die at 90s, right? I'm going to have a 90-year-old body and my kids are going to be what, 70?
Yeah.
60?
Or if he comes back now, are they going to be little kids?
Yeah.
That's
These are my kids. I want them to be kids.
Yeah, right? Who knows what, who know? I always wonder, like, what age am I going to be in heaven? Will we know? Who knows?
Will I recognize my kids?
I
Will
think
I recognize
so.
my friends?
I
and my
believe
wife?
so. I believe so. I think that's going to be one of the greatest things when we get to heaven, is that we're going to say, oh, there's going to be people we recognize.
My mom that passed away.
Right? My dad. Get to heaven, my uncle. I'm like, hey, they're going to be chilling up there. So, I mean.
Talking shit.
Yeah. Where you guys been? my dad died in 2001, right? So a couple of years ago, it was the 20th. I think the 20th anniversary. He's been gone, right? So 4 years ago. So we talked about one day being 1,000 years to God. So I said, if my dad's been in heaven for 20 years, if I go off the math, God's math, 30 minutes. So when we get to if we were to be in heaven right now, my dad would be like, where you guys been the last 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
For 20 years, 30 minutes to them, right? Not a bad deal. But I think heaven's going to be a great place. I think when we get there, there's going to be a lot of people we are going to look for, and they're not going to be there. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, you made it?
Great. I can't believe this guy's here.
Right. I just think it's going to be a glorious time, man. I think that's, if God created this earth and there's so many things we're fascinated about this earth, I think heaven's going to be even greater.
If God created California, he knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
That's a masterpiece. California is the best place on earth.
Yeah.
The most beautiful place. Like, we've been to Tahoe, we've been to Yosemite. You've been to Yosemite Park?
I've never been to Yosemite.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Why don't native Californians do not go to national parks?
I know. I don't know. I think
you have to climb the Yosemite Falls.
Really?
Nevada Falls. Bro.
I have friends that have
mind-boggling.
been bugging me to go for a long time. I'm going to have to go.
We went in May. May. Not a lot of tourists. Kids are at school, in school at that time. Amazing.
I'm going to have to try it.
Mind-boggling. So, are you a rapture guy? Do you believe in rapture?
I do.
Really?
Yeah. I do.
If rapture occurs, would you feel sorry for the people that you know and they did not confess Jesus?
100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that drives me. Of course, we want to be close to God and we want to have our own personal relationship with him. But what good is it if we have this and we never share it with nobody? I mean, I myself get convicted because I feel like sometimes did I witness to somebody today? Did I share the love of Jesus? Did I display the love of Jesus today?
Mm.
Or even, what if it's 3 days? What if it's a week? And I'm like, Lord, like, wow, that's not good. Like, it's like saying, I'm good. I'm taken care of. You guys ain't. See ya. Right? I think there's times when I wake up and I ask God, hey, send me somebody today. And maybe they don't convert, but maybe I plant a seed. Or maybe I water the seed that somebody else planted.
The seed is all it takes.
Yeah.
So I just recently wrote my third book, and this is my personal testimony to Jesus Christ. And I have this example. So if you don't share the gospel, the good news, imagine you know that the huge storm is coming, right? And you have this one plane that you can get in on a plane and you just fly away. You got the tickets and you go with all your family, right? You show the ticket, you're on board, and your family is being told you can't go. It's the same thing in heaven, right?
Yeah.
You're like, we're good. Yeah, we're good. My whole family, all my friends are good. And you're in heaven, they're like, but they're not coming. Yeah, why? They didn't confess. They didn't know Jesus at all. But no, there's no way.
Right.
That's miserable.
Right.
Can you imagine watching your kids not getting on that plane, not getting in heaven, or your wife?
Yeah.
I don't want to live in heaven. These are my kids, and I get to watch it, how they burn in hell.
Right.
It's crazy.
We
have to share it.
We have to share it, right? We have to share it. I mean, they're going to make their own decision,
But at least we have.
But at least we shared it with them, right? I feel way better when I share it with my friends. There's been times when I've been like, man, I've worked with this guy all these years, and I never shared it with him about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, how could I do that? You know?
It's like you're not a true believer. If you truly believe in God, you know this is the only Savior that they got. Share it before it's too late. You never know. Just like Jesus said in Matthew, right? Matthew 24. You never know when the end day comes. You have to share it. Maybe that's tomorrow, and you didn't share. You didn't have this conversation with the colleague of yours.
There's a famous magician duel, Penn and Teller, and it's the taller one. I think it's Penn, and Penn is he doesn't believe in God. He's atheist. But he said that there was a guy that went up to him and gave him a Bible one day and told him about Jesus. And he just thought to himself, like, man, that guy knew I was atheist, and he still came and gave me the Bible and shared with me about Jesus. And he goes, I respect that. Because if you believe that much to come and tell me about it, then that means that he's really about that. He goes, so where are all the other people at?
The storm is coming.
How come they're not sharing it with me? How come nobody told me? If it's true and it's 100% and you have the answer, you should be sharing it with everybody.
But isn't it the same thing as proclaiming that confessing that you're a Republican? Confessing that you're a Christian? The same thing?
No, I don't think so.
So what's worse, to be a Republican or a Christian now?
No. I mean, you mean like, if you're out there proclaiming that you love Jesus, are you Republican? What does the world hate more?
Yeah.
I think sometimes people put them together, right?
Yes.
I think I tell people that all the time. Well, you're a Republican. How are you going to be? How can you be a Christian and be a Republican or be a conservative? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
it's almost in the way.
I battle with that because I think a lot of times, and with the podcast too, is because I don't want the voice or the message of the gospel to be louder than my political views, right? It's something that I've always battled with because I'm so about my political views and sharing them, whether it be about freedom of speech, abortion, Second Amendment rights, whatever it may be. I want to speak out about that. But then I don't want that voice to turn off liberal friends that I need to tell about Jesus, right? Because right away they'll be like, nah,
But for you, party preference does not matter at all. So if you have
I
values and principles,
no.
Do you care what kind of party this is?
Oh yeah,
Really?
I think if you're a Christian, there's only one party you should be for.
Let's say you had in 2 years, in 4 years, you'll have a Democrat candidate that's a Christian, and he's pretty conservative, safety, economy-wise, America first, etc. Would you care that he's a Democrat, that he's blue?
Not if his values and policies align with mine.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't care. And that's what I tell a lot of people. Like,
it's about the candidate, not about the party.
Right. The values and policies have to line up with my values and the way I live and my beliefs. Right. They have to align. And I tell people that all the time. Where's your values in your life? who do they align up with more? And I think people are just so blinded. Like they think like, well, there's no way I can, vote for Republican. Well, where do more of your values align? I was talking to my friend the other day, and he has daughters. And I'm like, you like men being in your daughter's restroom or playing in their sports?
Mm.
No, I don't like that part. Okay.
Bro.
Like, and I start going down the line of things. Do you like having high taxes? No. Do you want to be safe? Yeah. Hey, we used to go shooting. You believe in the Second Amendment? Well, I do. Bro, your values align here. Why? And they'll find one thing.
What's that?
Maybe abortion. Probably abortion is the number one thing. And maybe the immigration thing. And they'll take all 10 values over here.
What's the problem with legal immigration?
Oh, illegal immigration?
Legal.
Nothing. We're a country of immigrants.
That's how I came here.
Yes.
Legally.
Yes.
What's the problem with that?
Nothing. That's the way it should be. 100%.
What's the problem with abortion?
Well,
They want to just kill kids? Their own kids?
It's murder.
Correct.
I mean, I tell people this all the time. Like, let's just say it's not even a Christian thing, right?
Yes.
For us, it's a Christian thing. It's murder.
Yes.
Right? We believe that life begins
Kind of a sacrifice.
Evil sacrifice in inception, right? Boom. We believe that life started. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I tell people all the time, okay, let's say you don't believe in God. Let's say that you're just a regular person. Let's say you believe in karma, right? Let's say you believe that everything goes around, comes around.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that murdering innocent babies has any effect on us?
Oh no, that's
As
not
a
a baby.
nation.
That's a fetus.
Yeah.
That's the whole argument of theirs.
Yeah.
It's a fetus.
Well,
Clump of cells.
if it's not alive, then why do you have to kill it?
Let's say you meet God tomorrow, God forbid, but what would you ask him? He'll
Wow.
get one-on-one, 1 hour. And I believe you've got lots of questions.
I got one question.
One only.
One question for God.
What's that?
So it's one I battle with to this day.
Really?
My dad died when he was 45 years old,
Okay.
24 years ago. Why? What was the purpose, God? Why did you take him so young? Why did he die? What was going on behind the scenes that I didn't understand?
That's a good question.
Because to me, in face value, doesn't make sense.
The same question I would have is one of my grandmas is 84 years old, and she's asking, and she's very ill, right? She almost can hardly walk, etc. And she's always, whenever we FaceTime each other, she's like, "Why doesn't God take me?" And I wonder why. Does God have plans for her? She's kind of a believer, but I want to say certainly not. She hasn't held the Bible in her hands, right? She does not know about Jesus, etc. She does not proclaim gospel. So this is not the purpose of her life, in my view. But God has to have some kind of a plan for her. Why He's not taking her into heavens or to hell when she's 84? Maybe He's waiting for her to confess Jesus. I don't know.
I think that those questions could be as simple as that, right? God could just look at us and go, I was giving her a chance.
Your dad confessed Jesus.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me.
Why?
Because
he did everything that God planned for him to do. That's it. What's the purpose of being on this earth?
Well, I think being a young father, for me, needing somebody.
How old were you?
I was only
you're 30.
Yeah, I was 20. I was 27.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking okay, somebody to show me, Dad, how did you raise 4 kids and go to work and be involved in church?
But remember that moment. You grew up instantly, right? When Dad died?
No, I had some rough times. It strained me a little bit. I didn't question God, but it affected my prayer life for sure. Because, he was sick for 4 years. I'm praying for him. I'm believing God. I'm asking God.
He didn't save him.
And he doesn't get healed. So after he died, somebody asked me to pray for them. Okay.
What's the purpose?
I would be like, well, God's going to do what he wants. So what good is my prayer to God? Hey, you already made the determination. This was my thinking. You already made the determination. So why do I'll pray for this guy, but I'm only going to pray like one time. Lord, I ask you that you just touch this person, heal them. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. You're going to do what you want to do, Lord. Totally bad attitude. Totally not in faith. Totally just, angry at God a little bit. I knew I couldn't be mad at him. I knew I couldn't leave him, because when a tragedy like that happens to a lot of people, especially when you're a little bit younger, you turn your back on God. Well, he didn't answer my prayers, so I'm done with him. And a lot of people say that. I knew I couldn't turn my back on God. I know what he did for us, but I think my prayers, especially when it came to somebody that was sick.
But maybe you were too selfish. You thought that was about you, but that was about your dad. Maybe and I hope it's better for him to be in heaven with the Heavenly Father.
Oh, well, I'm sure he didn't want to come back if he had the chance. Right?
No.
There was no
I'm
way.
not going back to this country.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going back down there. See you guys when you get here. But I just think it was tough. It's just me and my son. I'm praying that my son has multiple boys to keep the family name going, because that's the end. But it just didn't make sense for me. And I think it caused a lot of heartache not having him, a part of the family, and being the head of the family. I think that was the biggest thing for me. So that's a question that I always say. Am I better now? Yeah, a lot better. Has my faith always been a little bit affected by that one thing that happened? Yes, at times. It has been strengthened. But there's been, it's funny that you say that, because I think a lot of times my faith was, the expectations were set low.
Low?
Yes. So when I'd go to God, my expectations were set low because I had high expectations when I was praying for my dad.
Oh, I got you. Afterwards, okay.
Right? I had these high expectations. I'm praying for my dad for healing. I'm believing. It didn't happen. So when that didn't happen, a lot of times when things didn't go right in my life, it started dogpiling. And so when I pray for this, or pray for this job, or pray for this opportunity, or pray for this healing for somebody else, and it didn't happen, my expectations started coming a lot more lower. Well, I'm not going to set the expectation. If it happens, it happens. Okay, Lord, let it be your will. Right? But with a little maybe chip on my shoulder, or maybe with a little bit of, I have bad luck, so it's probably not going to happen, but I'll just ask God anyways and see, and flip a coin. And I think my expectation was low. Then I started to change my expectation. Why am I limiting God? He has his plan, he has his purpose. I need to be okay with that. Why am I telling God and being a little angry or having a chip on my shoulder when I'm praying for these things? I'm limiting God, but I'm only hurting myself, because now I'm so low on my expectations.
So in my mind, I always compare the two fathers, the real father and the biological father and the heavenly father, right? So if I'm a little kid, and I always, in the Gospel of John, it says, if you ask in my name, in Jesus' name, I'm going to give it to you. Almost, right? So if I'm a little kid and I'm asking my dad to buy me a new iPhone, right? But he knows that this is not the time, or I don't need it.
Right.
So this is the same thing. If you ask something, Heavenly Father knows better what we need right now at this moment.
But that's hard to accept.
That's hard to accept. I want it now.
We're human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, Lord, what happened? We had booked this podcast last month. And
I want to say almost last year. Almost.
Last year. Well, last month was
yeah.
almost last year.
Yeah,
2 months ago.
Yeah.
Right? And just it didn't happen because I had
The day before, right? Or 2 days before.
yeah,
You sent me the photo.
I was like, no way. I had this infection, and I'm asking God, like, okay, Lord, like, that was a whole month. That was just through December, and part of January was just rough. We were sick. I had this infection, all these things. And I'm praying to God, like, what is going on here?
Mm.
And I my faith was super low because I'm like, I was praying, touched this infection. I didn't even know it was an infection in the beginning. Became an infection, had to have surgery. Wife gets sick. She starts feeling better. She gets sick again. Kids both get sick. I'm like, Lord, what's going on here? Like, what am I missing here? I'm missing an ingredient. It's like I'm praying, I'm living right. I'm believing. What am I missing? And you have to sometimes sit back and endure and be like, what are you trying to show me? And it was hard for me.
Did you find out what was missing?
I called my pastor one day. And I told my pastor, I just feel like, am I doing something wrong? Am I missing an ingredient? And he says, I never seen the Lord not smile upon somebody or deny somebody that's doing what's right. And you've done what's right. But the Lord is trying to show you something. You're going to have to endure through this. You're going to have to believe. You're going to have to set your expectations higher.
Mm.
I don't know what he's going to do, but you're going to get through it. And you're going to learn something. And I think when I finally started getting through that, me and my wife realized that a lot of times in our prayer, and I'm not saying that's why we didn't get healed or that's why, but I think our expectations were set low. I think we were, well, okay, Lord, it's probably going to be the worst, but I'm just going to have to deal with it. And that's the wrong way to think. I don't think God wants us to think that way. God wants us to believe in faith that he's going to answer our prayers, that he hears us. And is it always his will that we get what we want? Because we want it immediately.
Yeah.
Right? No. Are we always going to understand what he's doing? No. And that's the nature of what God does. He's just like, I have a plan. You're going to have to trust me.
Sit tight.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
I always equate it to like, God is like, says, hold my hand, close your eyes. And we walk through LA, right? Imagine walking through LA and somebody's leading you at night with your eyes closed. You're stepping
Let's go to 7-Eleven.
Yeah, you're stepping on glass. You're hearing honking, gunshots, right? People yelling. What was that? And God's saying, I got you. Don't worry about it. Just trust me. And you're trying to take the blinders off. He's like, let me just look real quick. And God's like, no. Don't
it's
worry
better
about
for you
it.
not to look.
Yeah. And I equate it to that sometimes. And I'm like, I just have to put my hand in his hand and trust him. And I'm embarrassed to admit that. Like, I went through that. I'm embarrassed to say, like, in a way. But in a way, it's like, no. Like, God's not done with me. I'm 50 years old. I've been a believer my whole life, pretty much.
Mm.
And God still, I'm going to show you something else, Dave. And I'm like, okay.
Is it good?
you think you arrived, right? I've seen it all. I've been in church my whole life. I've been through so many things. I get it. I know how God works. And then God goes, no, you don't. I want to have something new I want to show you. And it's not to hurt us. It's to make us better.
So the last question on my podcast is always the same. Let's have two assumptions with you. Assumption number one is the president of the United States of America is the most powerful human being on planet Earth, especially now with Trump. Assumption number two is you become one. You become the president of the US. Once you do so, you have all those agencies at your disposal. And let's say Secret Service come to you and say, congratulations, Dave, you're the president now. We love you. We as a Secret Service, we know all the answers in the world, right? We were the intelligence. We know everything. You ask us, we give you an honest answer. What would be your first question?
Wow. Any question.
And you'll get the truth.
I would probably ask. I mean, it's kind of funny because a couple of these questions, they look like they're going to be answered. I want to know if the government was involved in the assassination of JFK, Martin Luther King, and even Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, is our government that evil to commit those crimes? RFK, all these people.
Let's say they give you evidence, they confirm it. You as a president, would you expose it to the public?
I would.
No holdback.
I wouldn't hold it back. I think there's too many. I think we're at a tipping point where we need to expose the truth. And I think maybe at a time we didn't want to believe that. But I think when we know that, I think we're at a point where we're like, well, it could happen. I think if you go back 30, 40 years ago, no way.
No way.
Our country wouldn't do that. Now we see things and we're like, well, and that's how it was for a long time. I'm not a big conspiracy guy. My wife is this big conspiracy theorist. She's like, no.
What's the craziest one?
9/11. It's hard for me to. I've changed my views on it, but I've been to the Twin Towers and the the museum and what remains underneath the ground. It's hard to fathom that
People can do this kind of evil?
that somebody let them do it.
Okay, so
It's coordinated. It was it seems coordinated, right? I mean, how? It just seems too like
30,000 people.
yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me for a long time I said, there's a lot of this has been a theory since the beginning, right? Like it was the government that did it.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time I said, I think it takes too many people to be involved
Mm-hmm.
to do that. And that's still I want to lean more towards that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you look at the buildings that tumbled after,
Building 7?
yeah, it that's the one that kind of like goes. I go, do I believe that the reason why I think the towers did fall because of the planes that crashed in them is because of the way they were constructed. So I think it's fully possible. I think when people say, well, I don't think, the fuel and the fire wasn't enough to mount the beams. Maybe not. I'll give them that. But I think the way they were constructed,
But the passports, bro.
they were on all sides, the buildings, right? They were put up like this. There's no core to the building. So before they build any offices, you can see end to end in the building.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they built them.
Mm-hmm.
New buildings are built with a core all the way up the middle, right? So I can see how it would fall under the weight of itself. Once one gave, it just gave. And so I can see that. But
Let's say they give you evidence that this is an inside job to you as a president. Expose it? It's a tough one.
That's a tough one. That would be a tough one because I think that was an act. I mean, that created the war. That's why we went to
1 million lives.
Yeah, that's why we went to war for 20 years because of that. So
How about 3,000 Americans killed?
and our own people? We declared war
On false prophet.
on ourselves, and then we go to war over that. And I know there's a lot of people out there who's like the.
I like the podcast, but until this episode, right?
I think that's. You know what? Going back a little bit, if I could rewind a little bit in that question, you know what I would probably check on?
What?
That I think that I totally agree with it now. The man walking on the moon. I don't think that happened. Do you?
No. Because every time I see a picture of what has landed on the moon, it feels like made of carton, like paper. It went through all the sphere, stratosphere, all that, landed, and then went back to the Earth. Bro, 1960, what, 9?
Yeah. How come we haven't been back?
Nothing to do there. Technology is lost.
I just don't understand. I mean, we've come so far in technology. Well, why don't we just go back for the kicks just to show everybody that we can do it again?
Did you know that Indians from India were on the moon last year or 2023?
Really?
It says so.
I wonder what their videos look like. You know what's so funny about the video that you never think about when you look at the astronauts getting off the...
Who filmed them?
Who filmed them?
This is the first type of humankind. Boom. Someone's... Bro.
Who filmed them? Why didn't we ever think of that before? Like, wait a minute. Who's filming this? I think that one. That one for kicks. That one would be an easy one for me.
I think
cause
chaos.
You think so?
Oh, man.
No, I think the 9/11 exposure would cause more chaos.
Apollo 11 is the Tower of Babel.
Really?
Really? This is the greatest achievement of humanity. Nope. We lied. That's a hoax. We didn't do that. Really?
I wonder how come nobody's... Has anybody asked Elon if he thinks that they landed?
Okay, so I'm gonna go crazy about it. Do you think there's space at all?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What does the Bible say? Genesis 1:6. The firmament to separate waters from outside and inside. How do you process that?
Well, I think there's... I mean, we can see the moon. We can see the sun.
Yeah, but if the Bible is true, and I have to believe that the Bible is true, firmament, like a what? Like a shell to separate waters?
Oh, you're going to the... So you're saying the flat earth theory?
No. I'm saying... Okay. I suggest there is no space, but there is water in there.
Oh.
Have you seen how do they, if you zoom in into a star and it shows like blinking, something like that?
Sure.
Have you ever seen a water or a pool when the direct sunlight? It's like the same thing.
True.
I think you can't go out from the, what is it called? Not stratosphere. Stratosphere?
The galaxy?
From the Earth. You can't leave it because there's a firmament. You can see it. Maybe it's vast, maybe it's endless, but you can't leave it. That's why we even haven't been to the moon. I believe so.
Interesting.
I think so.
Interesting.
I'm not saying that the Earth is flat.
No.
But I think that there,
nothing.
Water, because the Bible says so. Firmament to separate waters.
You don't think that was talking about the Earth? Land from oceans and seas? But not space, not heavens? So Genesis
1:6. So I have a NIV. Don't judge me. No. Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault how? Sky. You can process it the way you want. The vault, or in I want to say in King James Version, it's firmament.
Okay, let me see.
Genesis 1:6 and 1:9, and God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." So if it's under the sky, it means there is above the sky too.
Okay, I think there is a... I mean, there's a lot of things we don't understand. But...
Most of the things. If you read Genesis, amazing book. My favorite book is Genesis. It has so much.
So, do you believe there's moisture in the air as you get higher?
I believe the firmament
is part of that.
That protects us from the water. Does it say when Noah... how did the flood appear?
This is a good study here.
The God opened what? So the water from heavens. That's a lot of food for thoughts and interpretations.
Yeah. So the way I always interpreted it is the land, and
Earth,
and then I get the sky. But there is moisture in the air as you get higher. When you're in a plane, we can't ride outside the plane, obviously with the velocity, but there is moisture that gets on the plane as you get higher. And if you go closer to the sun, it's not going to be there.
More moisture. It's not going to be there. The Bible says no. The vault separates water from above and below.
I'm going to have to do a little bit more studying on
So
that.
do you think sun is that far away?
What do they say it is?
Million miles away. I want to say 93 miles away. 93 million miles away.
I don't think we know.
And the Earth spins with a crazy speed, and we
I agree with that.
And we go crazy fast into the galaxy.
Yeah. I agree that. I think that all those things are God's creation because they all work together.
I agree in that. I agree with that. I just don't agree. I don't think that the sun is
that far away. I think there's questions at the sun that we just.
Do you know why I don't believe them? Because they're saying 93 billion years ago. Excuse me, what?
No, I know.
Why 93? 92. Why not 89?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's billion here and there.
Right.
Billion years? How do you know what happened a billion years ago?
Yeah.
No chance, bro.
There is
no chance.
There's no chance. I don't think the Earth is that old.
Correct. The Bible says it's like 6,000 years ago.
Yes.
How do they know what's... Okay, I'm going to ask you. What's in the center of the Earth?
All we know is the core from what they tell us.
And something very hot, right?
They say it's something very hot.
How do they know?
Yeah. Have they ever been there?
Yeah. How do you know?
No.
You can look through the planet?
No. There's actually been Christians that said they've drilled holes and then stick microphones and hell's in the middle of the earth. Right?
Yeah. Right. This is science, right? They say, you don't believe in science? I do believe in science. But science, a lot of times science gets misunderstood, or they do heinous stuff. Lobotomy, right? 60 years ago, they were just having this stainless steel pipe, and they were just going through the whole brain just to get, if you're crazy, if you had schizophrenia. 70 years ago, doctors told that a pregnant woman can smoke. It does not affect. They had these pills to get what? To get not for pregnant women not to get nausea, something like that. And it appeared that it affected the children, and they were born handicapped.
In buildings, asbestos.
Yes.
Right? It was good at one time. It was a miracle.
This is also
miracle material.
Science.
That was science.
Yeah. I believe in science.
No, I believe in science. I think there is some fallacy in science.
Yeah, of course.
There has to be, right?
Yeah.
I think any true scientist...
We learn.
I think any true scientist will tell you that.
Yeah.
But we live in an era where...
You know, we live in an era where science is a religion.
Ooh.
I believe in science.
Yeah.
Masks work, right?
Right.
2 years go by, masks do not work. Really? No, but masks work. Do you remember people using 2 masks at a time?
Yes.
3 masks at a time?
Yeah.
On their own, driving a car?
Right.
This is a religion, bro.
I mean, we were stupid to believe that. I mean, for the last 4 years, people that believe that men can menstruate.
Or get pregnant.
Yeah.
I have never met a man that can menstruate in my entire life.
Never.
Never.
Doesn't happen.
And I believe I will never meet a man that can menstruate.
I'll put $1 million on that.
I'm gonna double that. I'm gonna put my $17 that I have on my bank account.
I think there is things in I think science is good.
Correct.
For the believer, I think, because
especially medicine.
If you really look at science, if you really look at the way the earth moves, our bodies, right? I think you have to realize that there was a creator.
Yes.
We just didn't come from a big bang, right?
Out of nothing comes nothing.
Nothing, right? So I think that's good. Is there things that we've figured out and we just believe off man's word and say, okay, yeah, that's true? A little bit different. Is there things in the word that are a little sometimes, I don't know. I think that's okay though sometimes. Like when you read that, like I'm like, okay.
Let me think about it.
Yeah, let me think about it. I don't know. It could it be right? Yeah. Is it gonna ruin my faith? No. Is it something like maybe it's true? I don't know. I would have to study it, but I think there's things in the word. I think with Christianity, I think with the Bible, I think we always think like we have to know every single answer to everything. And I think there's some things that we just don't know the answer. I'm not sure. We talked a little bit about the end times, right? In the end times, it tells you where each country is going to end up, right? And they have a different name for it, right? Asia's called something else, and all these countries are called something else. There's never no mention of the United States. There's nothing that connects the United States to the end times. So what does that mean? Either we fell underneath whatever rulers at that time and we just gave up, or the worst, maybe we were destroyed by a nuclear bomb. I don't know. There's no mention of the U.S. in Revelations. There's not that they're going to say United States, of course not. But in every other country that's around there, Israel, Asia, Russia, there's a name for them, right? For the U.S., there's not. What does that mean? I don't know. Could it mean that we all got destroyed? Possibly. Could it mean that we just fell underneath,
China,
the beast or somebody else? Yeah.
The beautiful part of this book is the same thing that you just mentioned, interpretations. It's food for thoughts. You just take Genesis and you read it very carefully. Like, wait a minute. It doesn't say that this does not exist. It doesn't say it exists, but it doesn't say that it does not exist.
And you'll get theologians, and some of them will agree on things. Some of them will not agree. But what's the most important stuff in the Word?
Jesus.
There's no denying that. Yeah. There's certain things that there's not, maybe an atheist will tell you it's different, but died on the cross, rose again on the third day. And
the whole
died for our
Old
sins.
Testament is a preface to Jesus.
Yeah.
Him coming. That's it.
So
prophecy fulfilled.
Fulfilled.
Why? What do Jews need more? Prophecy was fulfilled.
Yeah.
Confess Jesus Christ.
Well,
be saved.
Well, maybe they're like what we talked about earlier. It's hard to admit that you're wrong.
Yeah. Just confess. It's never too late.
That's it. So I think I think it's okay though to say sometimes like I'm not sure. There could be a few different things. I was reading today about, I'm a big 2A guy. So I read today about Peter grabbing his sword, and the Lord told him, hey, make sure you have a sword. Mm-hmm. Do we need two? No, settle down. Mm. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking like, okay, he's Jesus. Why did Peter need to grab the sword? On one hand, I'm like, that's great. I'm a Second Amendment guy. Jesus told him, hey, grab your weapon. What do they need it for? Well, maybe there was wild beast out there. Maybe on their journey there was robbers. Maybe they did pull it out and they just never recorded it. Mm-hmm. Right? Who knows?
We only know the last 2 to 3 years of Jesus.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, okay. Do I have a definite answer on that? No. I don't. That question I'll probably ask God, sure. Like, hey, what happened right here? There's a lot of things. I think I love the human element in the Bible. Mm. And I always tell everybody there's a lot of them, right? But I think the one where here's Paul, he gets converted, and God speaks to Ananias to go and meet him. Pray for him. Mm-hmm. Kind of be his first representation of Jesus, right? And just be that brother to him. And I love the human element, because what does Ananias say? He's a believer. If God's willing to call upon him to go speak to Paul, second greatest guy in the Bible, Ananias must be pretty good. And Ananias goes, Lord, do you know who this guy is? Yeah. This guy's murdering Christians. He's asking God. So I always think like there's a human element. It's fine. I think the Lord gets a kick out of it sometimes. I think he's like, hey, I'm not going to give you all the clues and
I'm going to give you a hint.
But I think that causes us to get in his word more.
Read and read and read.
Right?
One mention of Nephilims in Genesis. Mm-hmm. A million theories. One mention.
Yes.
There is a mention in Genesis. Bro, Dave, so it's been almost 2.5 hours. I had a blast. Right?
Thank you, bro.
So God bless you. God bless you,
Thanks for having
your
me.
wife, your kids, your future grandkids, everybody that you know.
I appreciate you.
And let's spread the gospel. Let's save some people.
Yes, sir. That's it. I'm blessed by you, by what you got going on here, man. I'm honored that you asked me. I hope I was a good guest, because I when you asked me, I was like, me? I'm a podcaster. I love having guests. I love being the host, not being the guest. But thank you for having me, man. And God bless you, man. I'm glad that you guys found the Lord, and you and your beautiful family. And I hope the best for you.
Thank you.